Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Devils Down Under, the October 20th, 2023 edition. I am your host, Chris, as always, alongside my co-host, Georgia. Georgia, how have you been this week?
I've been okay. It's been an up and down week, but I'm doing okay now. How are you?
I'm good. Got back from my little weekend getaway in Vermont, and I am a little refreshed, so that's good. And ready to talk some Devils hockey.
Yeah, some Devils hockey. 2 games since our last episode. 2 somewhat disappointing games.
Yes, it has not been the best of weeks for the Devils. They had a perfect start to the perfect preseason, a perfect preseason. And it's been a little shaky to start in the first 3 games. The Devils are 1-1-1, so they have 3 out of a possible 6 points. So not an ideal start. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of how they've looked in those 3 games. But before we get into all of that, we have a Guess That Devil to get to this week.
We do. Now, last week when I read it out, you said you didn't think you knew who it was. But you've done some thinking, and what are your thoughts now?
I didn't at first, and I had to sit and think about it for a while, and so I was like, all right, who is part of the Triple Gold Club that played for the Devils that was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres? That was kind of where I was trying to narrow it down to try and remember or think of who this could possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to quickly reread the entire clue first, just so we can get that recap before you give your guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. This Devil was drafted 89th overall by the Buffalo Sabres in 1988 and played 2.5 total seasons with the Devils. He is one of 30 members of the Triple Gold Club.
All right, so like I said, I kind of phoned in on Sabres, only played 2.5 seasons with the Devils, and is a member of the Triple Gold Club. Mm-hmm. So, my guess here is that this is Alexander Mogilny.
Yes, you got it.
All right, nice.
See, now I thought that you would get this one because I was like, "Oh, this is a pretty well-known name amongst the Devils." So I was surprised last week when you were confused, but you got it in the end. For those that don't know, the Triple Gold Club, what I've got written down here, Olympic gold, World Championship gold, and a Stanley Cup. Yes. So Alexander got the Olympic gold for the USSR in 1988, the World Championship gold for USSR in 1989, and then the Stanley Cup in 2000 with us. Mm-hmm. I have quite a few little factoids for him.
Yeah, go for it.
So he was the first Russian to be an NHL captain. He holds the highest single-season goal total for a Russian player, and was essentially cock-blocked by Sergei Fedorov, who was the first. Yeah, he was the first Russian to reach 1,000 points in the NHL a few days before Mogilny did. So he was cock-blocked from 1,000 points.
That's brutal.
And then also, according to the Guinness World Records, Mogilny holds the record for fastest goal from a start of a game in their NHL debut. So he scored 20 seconds into his debut with the Sabres in 1989. And he is still second in points per game for the Devils. So he has 94. 0.94.
Can you repeat the second one again? What was the second one you listed? The second fact?
Holds the highest single season goal total for a Russian player.
And how many was that?
I don't have that written down.
Oh. I think it was 50. Not 50. 76 with the Buffalo Sabres in 1992-1993 season. Which is kind of crazy to think about when there have been so many elite goal-scoring Russian wingers in the NHL, particularly with Ovi. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure some of these records will be broken or maybe have been broken and what I was looking at maybe wasn't quite updated, but that's what I found from him. And I was like, whoa, he's done a lot of things as a Russian.
He was a really, really good player for us in the limited time that we had him. His first full season for us, which was, 2000 and 2001, he had 43 goals and 40 assists in 75 games played. So really good year for us that year. And then he came back, I believe, in the 05-06 season?
Yeah.
It was right after the lockout, I believe.
Yeah, and that was his final season.
Yeah, he played a little bit in the AHL that year too, if I remember correctly. But he played for the Albany River Rats. But yeah, McKinley was a really, 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 really good player. In his, I mean, you score 76 goals in 77 games. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, he's for a guy that's only played just under 3 seasons for the Devils. I think he holds a pretty nice little special place in a lot of Devils fans' hearts. So,
yeah, that's why I thought it was time to say his name.
Well, that was a good one. I like it.
There you go.
All right, so I guess we should move on to the disappointing week that the New Jersey Devils had.
Yes, so we had 2 games since our last recording. On our last recording, it was the same day of our first game for the season, and that was also not the greatest game, but we somehow managed to scrape a win with that one. But these 2 games are 2 L's, one in overtime, and then just a straight loss.
Yeah, so just the 1 point out of the total 4 that we could have gotten in the 2 games since last week's episode. First game against Arizona, as you stated, was a loss. Ended in a shootout. The final score was 4-3. Once again, slow start. Really plagued them out of the gate. At one point, once again, the shot count was like 6-6 or 7-1 or 2 to start the game. Just sluggish, out of place again. I think we were outshot in the first period 14-7. And the once again, the takeaway out of a rough first period was that the goaltending looked pretty good. Schmid looked pretty good. And yeah, just not a great start. Now, I actually missed this game because I was in Vermont, so I feel like that you should probably talk more about what you saw, because I was only really able to watch the highlights. So why don't you take it away on this one, because you're the one that actually watched the game.
Yeah, so I tried to take notes as best I could, and please forgive me because, I do my best to watch different players and things, but I still being new to watching, I still miss some things, or I'm not so good at watching the back and forth on the play. But my takeaway from particularly the first period of this game was it was just really uncohesive. Like, there was just no... They didn't seem to be working together very well as a team. There was the skating was better itself. People weren't necessarily overskating the puck, but they were just missing passes all over the place. Nico's line was kind of invisible. And this is kind of a common theme across all of 3.
We're gonna talk more about that top line, but that Nico and Timo specifically have not looked good. Nico's looked better than Timo, but that line has not looked that great. But yeah, we'll get more into that.
Yeah. The one other thing I would like to mention, and at least this is from what I thought, the first penalty kill we had in that first period did look pretty good. I don't, from what I was thinking while I was watching it, I felt like Arizona had hardly any of zone time. We also had 2 shorthanded chances on that penalty kill, so that got my hopes up. I was like, great, we're going to have a great penalty kill. And then the second period happened. The second period was kind of insane, and I remember I was texting you constantly going, this is insane, what is going on? From both sides.
9 penalties in the period between both the Devils and the Coyotes. Crazy.
Yeah, it it felt like the referee's show at that point. It felt like the
zebra show. Yeah.
Yeah. There were so many penalties. A lot of them were overlapping. I couldn't find the stats on how much of the period was spent in full 5-on-5 because I felt like the majority of the period was one penalty or another, or both. Our penalty kill wasn't great, and that led to a goal from Arizona. We could not clear the puck a couple of times. We couldn't do anything. It couldn't clear it. It was really frustrating to watch.
This is a carryover of a nagging problem that we had last year. Even though the PK was good last year in terms of the kill percentage and the raw numbers. Anybody that actually watched the Devils play last year knew that there would be long stretches, both within the season and within individual games, where the Devils just could not seem to get the puck out of the zone and get a clear to save their lives.
Yeah.
And from what we've seen so far this year, particularly in this game, from the sounds of it, and from what I saw in the highlights, it's continuing. We're continuing to have this little bit of a nagging problem where we get into these little phases on the PK where we couldn't hit water if we fell out of a boat, you know?
Yeah. Now, the game did pick up. The Devils finally looked like they had some life in the second period here. Bratt got a goal, and after that, like, it was kind of amongst all the penalties. Bratt got a goal about 8 minutes into the period. But they did get some life there. They got some energy. The crowd got some energy, and that helped. And then Dougie got a goal on as a power play goal. Meier had a decent moment where he kind of was a wall. He was skating forward with the puck, and someone tried to check him, and he just didn't budge, and the other player kind of had to back off, and he just skated around them like nothing had happened. So that was kind of a funny moment. I know that we haven't been impressed with Meier the last couple of games, but that was a funny moment where he was just solid. Bratt was playing a lot better and had some great chances, and then he got a second goal, and I think it was in the 5-on-3. So,
I mean, Bratt's really been good.
Yeah,
in all three games. I mean, him and Jack have really been the driving force of this offense for the first 3 games of the season.
He has, but I did notice in the first game he was overskating the puck a little bit, which wasn't usual for him. Yeah. So that's what I meant by he was playing better in that game. He wasn't overskating it the way he had in the first game. But yeah, we really needed to capitalize on that 5-on-3 chance, and we actually did, which was very different from the Devils team that I watched my first season of watching them. But really, that was my main takeaway from the second period. And then the third period, just kind of back to being a bit slow. Couple of things. Holtz got hit with a high puck to his chin, but he was okay. He kept playing. Bratt was looking great. And then Arizona ended up tying the game on a power play. I think from them, because we didn't clear on the penalty kill once again. And yeah, led to overtime, which went to a shootout.
Yeah, so it's early in the season, and don't really want to like hyperanalyze one game at the start of the season and be calling for everybody to be hitting the panic button. But some things that I have taken away, or that I was able to take away from this game, even though I wasn't able to watch it in its entirety, was the talent is clearly there on the team, right? I'm not too worried about that aspect of it. I think it's just jitters. Maybe not jitters is not the right word. I think it's just taking time for them to kind of to gel together. I am starting to get a little concerned about where Timo is gonna find his game. We'll get into him a little bit more here in a few minutes, but just slop. Honestly, the offense is, weirdly enough, the offense is there in terms of like the goals scored, but it really does just kind of feel like the Bratt and Hughes show, the Jack Hughes show. There are large chunks of offense on this team that have not performed yet. Timo is one of them. Nico is another. Nico still doesn't have any points, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Dougie's looked okay. Holtz has pretty much been invisible for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Mercer has not had a great start to the season. I thought his game against Florida was the best game that he's played of the season yet. But yeah, there are very key pieces on this team that are having a little bit of a rough start. So I think if we could just get a lot of that cleaned up, even just partially cleaned up, we'll be looking a lot better in the next week, going forward. So
I feel like Hall has had some pretty good hustle, but then he's also taken some really bad. I don't know whether he's taken bad penalties or he's just messed up in some kind of way, which has led to a scoring chance the other way. But so he's kind of been up and down. I feel like, I don't know, but I've been noticing him a little bit.
He's taken a couple of penalties that have hurt us, but honestly, I think the player that's been the worst in that regard on the team, who's not named Brandon Smith, is actually Timo Meier.
Yeah.
We'll get into him. Anyway, let's get through this one. So walk us through what happened in overtime.
Yeah, so overtime started with Hughes, Hamilton, and Bratt. They looked great. We know that generally we do pretty well when we're playing with more open ice. I feel like we've seen that a bit. There was no call on a trip on Marino, which got some booing.
Yeah, that'll get the refs you suck chant going. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, the refs you suck chant happened in the third because of a Palat was kind of getting beaten up behind the goal away from the play.
Well, what's funny is we'll get into it here in a few minutes. That isn't even the most egregious no call of the week.
Yeah, but yeah, there was definitely a trip on Marino in overtime, and they didn't call it. And then not too long afterwards, they called a penalty on Dougie, which was totally fair enough. They should have called it because he tripped someone. Then they had a power play. They had to do a penalty kill towards the end of it, and they managed to kill that, which got it to the shootout.
Arizona had a power play.
Sorry, yes. My notes are not very clear. I apologize. But yes, Arizona had a power play at the end of overtime, and we for the last minute, and we managed to kill that somehow. I don't know, and got it to the shootout, but we couldn't get through in the shootout. They got twice, and we got none.
I feel like
surprise.
I feel like shootouts have been this team's Achilles heel since 2012. For at least the last 12 years, 11, 12 years, this team has struggled with shootouts. So every time we go to a shootout, I go, oh, God, well, we're probably going to lose this game. Or I should say we're probably not going to get that extra point. So, my confidence in the shootout has been shot for a while now.
Yeah, agreed. So, like, once it got to the shootout, I kind of went, oh, well, that's probably the game, but we'll give it a go. And yeah, no one managed to get past their goalie.
It's not even because of bad goaltending. It's just because for some reason our skill players can never seem to consistently get it done in the shootout. So anyway, yes, it was a rough game. This is probably, this is a game. Let's be real. This is if the Devils are playing to their potential, this is a game that the Devils should win handily. I think that because this was a 4-3 loss in the fashion that it was to the Arizona Coyotes and not to the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Carolina Hurricanes, that people are probably reading into this loss a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. But it's not. This is unfortunately, I think, the start that you and I feared in terms of it not looking great. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a game that they should have won, and not to take anything away from Arizona. I think that they are going to be a better team than people gave them credit for this year. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I do think that they're going to surprise some people. Yeah. But this is still a game that the Devils should win 99 times out of 100. So
yeah. That being said, we did still get a point, so at least we got a point from that.
Yeah, if you're going to take a disappointing loss, at least try and claw a point out of it. So.
And I can't remember if it was the same day or the next day. I think Carolina lost to the Ducks.
Yeah, that was a weird game. I looked at the box score of that game. That was a very strange game.
That made me feel a little better.
And the Rangers lost today. The day today being the 19th, October 19th, they lost to the who'd they play today? They lost 4-1. I know that. Let me check.
4-1?
Oh my god, I got my app all screwed up here. This is making for a terrible podcast. I apologize to people listening. They lost to the Predators 4-1. Okay. I was looking at the score earlier, and I just I noticed that I think they were down 3-0 when I looked, or down 3-1 when I looked. So, yeah. I feel like that the beginning of the year is kind of, you do see this sometimes where a lot of the teams that are expected to be bad kind of start out a little hot or start out looking better than people expected them to look. And a lot of the really good teams struggle out of the gate. And when I say struggle, I mean, maybe on a 50% point pace instead of a 60 or a 65% point pace. So, yeah, not a great game. Unfortunately, the Devils were looking to maybe have a bounce back game against Florida and kind of make a statement, and they did. Except for the last 10 minutes of the game, they did the opposite in this one. This was an even tougher one, I feel like, given how it ended, given how it started, and given how it ended.
And then that shows in the fact that we didn't get any points from it.
Yeah, so this is the first game of the year that the Devils don't walk away with a point. It's a 4-3 loss at home to Florida. Once again, a slow start. They give up a goal early, just 4 minutes into the period. So once again, the Devils are not even halfway through the period, and halfway through the first period, and they find themselves down a goal, and they're having to play comeback from there on out. So, the Devils have got to find a way to stop these slow starts. It nagged us a little bit last year at times, and we were fortunately lucky enough and talented enough to overcome that a lot of the time. I mean, we had 26 comeback victories last year, which led the NHL. But you can't rely on that every single season. We've got to get out of this knack of going down 1-0, 2-0 in the first period, and then having to try and claw our way back by finding our game in the second and third. Once again, Meier and Hischier specifically did not look very good in this game, I thought. Timo took a couple of really bad penalties, particularly the second one, which is what led him to not playing in the third, and we'll get to that. But I think he only had, one shift in the third period?
Yeah.
And Mercer, I thought, had a better game than he did against than his first two games to start the season. I thought he had his best shift of the season in this game, both defensively and on the forecheck. But I don't know what's going on with Nico and Timo, but they're not in sync, and Nico is playing uncharacteristically a little sketchy, if that's the right word. His defense is fine. He had a rough first two games with the in the face-off circle, but he cleaned it up in this game. He had a 75%. I think he was 75% on the dot. So he had a much better game, much more Nico-like return to form in the face-off dot. But still, the points aren't there yet. I think offensively, he looks a little uncharacteristically out of sync. And Timo just, I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he is taking some dumb penalties, which he did do a little bit last year. He's going to take a dumb penalty here and there, but the thing with Timo is he's usually making up for it with his scoring and with the other areas that he contributes. And unfortunately, his scoring and his skill set is not translating to other areas on the ice at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen some people talking about that maybe it's because he's playing on the other wing than he's used to.
Yeah, so there was he's been playing on the left wing, and there have been some calls to maybe move him to the right wing and see how that works out. And from what I saw, it does look like that today in practice, Lindy was playing him on the right wing. So we're going to see if maybe that helps. I think we might see him play right wing against the Islanders tomorrow.
Yeah, because I saw an interview with Lindy where he was talking about why he's been playing people on the other wing, because he also has been playing Toffoli on the opposite wing to what he's used to, and I think his idea with that is to get them more cohesive in this playing in the center as well. But yeah, it seems with Meier that may not be a winning strategy.
Yeah, we'll see if moving him over to the right kind of gets him going.
If he does that.
Well,
if Ruff makes that call.
So what we did have today in practice, the lines were Toffoli, Hughes, Meier. So Meier's on the right wing on the top line. Palat, Hischier, Bratt. I know that some people are a little upset about breaking up
the TBH line.
The TBH line, but I think you got to get the rest of the lineup going. So I think we got to try and start. I know it's frustrating, and I get it, but I understand why Lindy is kind of trying to move some things around a little bit. And so third line was Mercer, McLeod, and Holtz. I am totally okay with McLeod getting a look on the third line and getting some more minutes. He actually has been one of the better looking players out of the gate to start the season.
Yeah,
I've
had
actually
some great shots.
I've been really impressed with McLeod's play thus far. He's kind of an animal on the puck. He seems to be just really really hard on the puck. And is his scoring touch ever going to develop? I mean, probably not. He's probably never going to be a 20 goal guy. I'd be very happy to be wrong about that, but
he's also been quite physical as well. I've been noticing him making a lot more hits, which is like hits that are making me like gasp because you can hear it. he's
been really strong on the puck, so I've been impressed with McLeod. And then we got Tierney, Lazar, and Bastian. I think Tierney is in because Holla is apparently dealing with an upper body injury. Nosek is dealing with a lower body, and Nosek is dealing with a lower body injury. So it looks like against the Islanders, Tierney will be making his season debut. So we will see how that goes. So again, this is why it's really important to have depth because we're not even 4 games into the season. Well, yeah. If you're the Devils, But yes, this is why it's important to have depth because, I mean, look, we're not even 4 games into the season and we're already racking up some minor nagging injuries. So this is going to be where those depth signings can help or hurt you significantly at this stage in the season. So
this is also going to be the game against the Islanders is also going to be our first away game, and we know that when we had a slow start last season and then we had it was quite a long away stretch, we did really well in that.
The Devils were really good on the road last year, so maybe they can carry that over this year. And then maybe we can gain some momentum on the road. Now, again, you want to be good at home. We don't want to go down this trend of disappointing the home fans every time. Yeah. Now, fortunately, the Devils last year did clean that up midway through the season and started playing a lot better at home. But let's not take until November to do that this year. Let's or December. So, boy, this is a frustrating game. The Panthers really pretty much just dominated us pretty much most of the first 2 periods, and realistically the first probably 5 or 6 minutes of the third period. It got all the way up to 4-0, and I looked at you and I said, well, once they scored that 4th goal, I said, well, that's game. Yeah. And technically I was right, but the Devils did turn it up a notch in the final 10 minutes of the game. And the crowd started to build and started to get behind him again. So
there had been some boos earlier on.
Yeah, there was a light chorus of boos at the end of the second period. From the fans as they were going off the ice, which, I mean, I get it, but man, 3 games into the season, it's tough to boo them. I think that's maybe a little harsh. 3 games.
I was honestly half expecting some ironic Fire Lindy chants to happen.
Oh God, yeah. Well, maybe we can spark a 13-game winning streak again. Now, there is one thing I wanted to talk about. Verhaeghe's second goal of the night was caused basically almost exclusively by two terrible misplays from Brendan Smith. And the first misplay was a little understandable than that. If you go back and watch it, the puck kind of hops over his stick a little bit, and that does happen sometimes, and I get it. But he also continued to misplay the puck after that, and it allowed Verhaeghe to just fly right in and get the backhander above Vitek's left shoulder. Now, that is also a shot that Vitek needs to get. I think that was a little bit of a weak goal, and V needs to have that. But that play doesn't even happen if it's not for Brendan Smith forgetting how to play hockey. Or did he ever know how to play hockey? I don't know. Either way, Smith has been terrible, as expected. Even if it weren't for Nemec's injury, which we'll talk about that in a minute as well, I have seen some people, some Devils fans, who are clamoring for Nemec and saying this is exactly why we should have kept Nemec up and why Brendan Smith should have never made the squad. And, I'm not even necessarily saying that they're wrong. Well, I mean, we're going to find out. But I think at this point, you don't want to yo-yo him. I don't believe in this idea of calling him up, sending him down, calling him up, sending him down. Now, if you're going to call him up and you're just going to rip the Band-Aid off now and say, screw it, we're going with Nemec because he has the higher upside. And you just throw him out there once he's healthy and you leave him in the NHL, that's one thing. But I think once you call him up to either replace Smith or to fill in for injury if we have more injuries, I think unless he plays absolutely terribly, you have to keep him up. So I think I can kind of understand why you don't want to do that prematurely. And I think that certainly now that he's injured, it doesn't matter. It's not looking like he's going to play this Saturday. So in the HL. So we'll see how long Nemec is out. It sucks that he got hurt. But, yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Brendan Smith has been terrible the first three games to start the season. And I don't really have much else to say. He's been bad. He's been bad.
It's led to some goals, and we can't really afford that the way that we've been playing the rest of the team,
No, and if I don't think that he is the guy to be pairing Luke with. I was never a big fan of that. I always thought he should have been playing with Marino. But, yeah, I don't know how long of a leash Smith has, but I hope it's not too much longer because at some point the defensive miscues have got to stop, especially from the guys that are supposed to be the veterans on the team. It's one thing if it's Luke that's making these mistakes, and it's like, okay, he's a 19-year-old defenseman. He's going to make some mistakes sometimes, but we can't afford this out of our veterans when we're trying to groom a 19-year-old rookie defenseman, and we have a 19-year-old.
Maybe groom is not the right word.
Well, sorry, but you know what I mean. And we have another 19-year-old defenseman that we expect big things from in the AHL. So,
and we don't want to pair the two of them together.
No,
when they're still trying to figure out what they're doing in the NHL.
If we were a bottom-feeding team and we were expected to be competing for a lottery position, then I would say, fuck it, throw them out there together, see what happens. But not when you're a contending team with aspirations for a Stanley Cup. I think that's a recipe for disaster, especially against teams like Florida that play a strong, hard style, in-your-face style. So, yeah, no way to put it. The defense has not been great. And I think we kind of all expected there to be a little bit of a step back, at least to start the year, with the loss of Severson and Graves. Although, just like Meier in the third period of this game, I did see that Severson did not play a single shift in the third period of, I don't remember who they were playing against. That might have been Detroit. I'm not 100% sure. But in that game, in their last game, Severson also did not play the entire third period because of a few defensive miscues. So, Welcome to the Severson experience, Columbus. One day you're going to love him, the next day you're going to hate him.
Yeah, we had a few people that didn't play in the third period or played one shift. We had Meier, we had Marino, which, funny because you were talking about pairing Luke with Marino, but
he had a very
Marino
uncharacteristically bad game, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Lazar was another one.
Which, that one was a little bit weirder to me. Maybe I should go back and look at the advanced stats, but at least at the eye test, he didn't appear to be playing poorly to my eyes. Like, I don't think he necessarily stood out, but I didn't see anything from him that was blatant, but I might have just missed something. I don't know. Maybe Lindy just didn't like what he brought to the table. We needed goal scoring, so maybe you just basically eliminate 3/4 of that, or 2/3 of that line altogether, you know?
That's what I would have thought. Maybe he was just trying to get goal scoring and trying to play just our top lines as much as possible. When even though we didn't have Meier out there, So we did end up scoring the 3 goals that we did score in that third period, 2 of which were on the power play.
Yeah, so we had Haula, McLeod, and Bratt in that order. Haula scored at 3:35, McLeod at 8:51, and then Bratt was a power play goal. The Haula and Bratt goals were power play goals, and Bratt's was scored at 17:37. So the Devils picked it up in the last 10 minutes of this period, and they played much more their style. I felt it did feel a little frantic, but it also felt
it needed to.
So you don't really want to play too frantic either, because that's how you get crazy back and forths. But it felt frantic, and it felt like that they finally had some urgency. And they got close and they made it exciting, and the fans really, after that second goal, or after that third goal, especially, got behind the team, and they were up and they were cheering, and they were. It felt like if we had maybe just another minute on the clock, that maybe they could have pulled it out. But a big part of the reason, in my opinion, that at least we didn't have a better shot at tying the game at the end was because of a horrible missed trip on a partial breakaway. Was it Hischier? I believe it was Hischier. I'm not 100% sure. I
think it was Hischier.
I tried to find a highlight of it somewhere, and because I don't pay for like the MSG Plus or whatever it's called, I can't like go back, and it's hard for me to go back and watch full games. And I couldn't find any highlights of who it was, but I mean, it was about as blatant of a trip as it gets. He had at least 2 to 3 feet of separation. On replay, you can see the stick clearly making contact with the skate, which causes him to lose his footing, and just no call. Just I said to you, that is no joke. That is one of the worst no calls I've ever seen in a regular season game. If we're not counting playoffs, it's one of the worst no calls I've ever seen.
It was. I think there was only about a minute left on the clock, and it was really frustrating because a lot of the conversation that was happening was, oh, well, the refs just didn't want to decide the game. We just had a power play and we got a goal on it, so they didn't want to, and
then don't commit the penalty.
It's as
simple
I'm one
as
of those
that.
people where if there's a penalty, and this would go both ways, even though it would frustrate me as a fan, if the Devils were to do it too, I would say, well, that probably should have been a call. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be mad that it wasn't a call if it went in my favor of us, but it's just really frustrating when the refs seem to just be like, oh, well, there's only a minute left, so I'm not going to bother.
And by the way, that argument is a load of crap, because you are quite literally potentially deciding the outcome of the game by, quote, not wanting to decide the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
So who knows what happens if the Devils get another power play there? Do they tie it up? Well, we'll never know. But we certainly should have been on the power play for the last minute of that period, minute and a half, whatever it was, of that period.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I even shouted to you when we were watching. I said penalty because I just assumed. Yeah. Well,
the crowd stood up and
then Bill Spalding, and they're not going to call it. And I said, unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I can't believe that they're. So whatever, they don't call it. So and the Devils are not able to take advantage with the empty net. So Devils go down 4-3 in regulation. We outshot them 34-30. Not that it really mattered that much. Like we said, Nico was much better in the faceoff dot. He was 75%. And so the Devils start the season 1-1-1 with that loss.
Yeah.
And our next game is tomorrow, the 20th, against the Islanders.
Yeah. Now, I will say just for that last game, I don't think we would have deserved to have won that game, even if we had scored in that last minute and somehow got it to overtime and somehow won in overtime. I don't think we necessarily would have deserved that win, given how we played in the first, second, and half of the third period. But yeah, it's still frustrating that call wasn't made, because it would have been nice to at least get to overtime with that, given the energy that they had in that third period.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not going to hit the panic button. It's only 3 games into the season. It's definitely a concerning start to the season, but I do think that this team is too talented to not get it together. And I think that they will. It's unfortunate that we're going to potentially look at another wishy-washy start, but hopefully we can get it cleaned up, and hopefully Timo can get rolling, because we're gonna if this team is gonna be the team that we're hoping it's gonna be, we're gonna need him to play at the level that he's capable of playing, and that we know he can play at. So I don't really know what to think about goaltending at this point. There have been a couple that I feel like probably shouldn't have been let in, but with how the team has played in front of Schmid and V, it's kind of hard to get a read on the goaltending. I thought that the goaltending has passed the eye test for the most part. I haven't seen anything from either goalie that
there's also been some amazing saves.
Yeah, they've both made some really timely saves. I think the team in front of them is just letting them down a little bit. So I'm not gonna make a judgment call on goaltending just yet. But whatever. Next week is a new week, and hopefully the Devils can get on track, and we can start tallying up some points, especially with Carolina. I mean, we know Carolina's going to start well. I think they're 3-1 to start the season as of the recording of this. So if we're going to have any aspirations of winning the Metro, I mean, we're going to have to keep pace with them. So
So next week, as you said, we've got the game tomorrow. As of recording, we've got the game tomorrow, and that's against the Islanders. And then we've got 2 more games, which is our second of our back-to-backs, against Montreal and the Capitals. I don't know why I said a team name but yeah. So we'll have 3 games to catch up on in the next episode. So we'll see. Hopefully they can clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I need to see some more from Holtz. I need to see more from Meier. I need to see more from Mercer. I need to see more from Nico. On defense, Marino's got to have a bounce-back game, I feel like. That was a very uncharacteristically poor game from him. He started out pretty well. I thought his first period was okay. But as the game went on, it just wasn't a great game from him. Other than that, I am interested to see how splitting Bratt from Toffoli and Hughes, does it actually spread the scoring out a little bit, or does Hughes cool off a little bit? I don't think so. Jack's gonna do his thing, I think, regardless of who his line mates are. But if we can get Meier going with Toffoli and Hughes, that'll be great. And I'm still not sold on Palat as a second line, although I do like Palat, Hischier, and Bratt as a good defensively responsible second line, especially with Bratt kind of taking a step in that direction this year, because they've been trying him on the penalty kill, and he's talked in the offseason about how he wanted to evolve his game, his defensive game this year and start playing more penalty kill minutes or playing minutes where they're up a goal and they need to preserve the lead. And I thought he's actually been pretty good in that role so far. He's had a couple of really strong penalty kill shifts and defensive shifts. So, yeah, I mean, Bratt and Jack Hughes have not been the problem. And Luke has been okay. He's been kind of invisible, but not necessarily in a bad way. Usually for a defenseman, if you're invisible, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, especially because when he wasn't invisible that first game, it was because he was making some really bad passes or
he had a rough start to the
things.
season. Yeah.
So him being invisible is a lot better than being visible for bad reasons.
Yeah, so it looks like that in going into the Islanders game tomorrow, that practice line is probably what we're going to see in the game. I'm assuming I'm just going to go into that game or go into tomorrow assuming that we're not going to get Haula or Nosek. So I
feel like we're going to have Schmid in goal.
Probably Schmid. Well, maybe not though, because the Devils have had 3 days off, and so V's the starter, so you don't want him to sit too many days. So they might start V anyway. Vanacek, for what it's worth, Vanacek was the quote starter in practice today, so that probably means that he will be the starter tomorrow.
Yep.
But yeah, hopefully the Devils have played the Islanders pretty well the last couple of seasons, so. Hopefully this will be the game that they can kind of have a bounce back game and kind of make a statement. You know, I think that's important that this team comes out and has a statement game, comes out and has a game in that they win 5-1, 5-2, something like that.
Yeah, that'll be Devils have arrived.
Yeah, at the very least it'll be maybe everyone can stop panicking now. You know.
Yeah,
and that was the other thing too. I've seen a lot of Devils fans kind of like already panicking and it's 3 games, guys. It's okay. If 13 games into the season, we're still having this discussion of the team does not look good, and they've got, I don't know, only 15 points in that time span out of 26 possible or whatever. Okay, yeah, then maybe it's time to start thinking of, okay, we gotta change something up here because it's not what we're doing now is not working. But 3 games in. Yeah. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. It's gonna take some time, maybe, to get everything gelling and going.
Well, one of the concerns has been the special teams, and from the sounds of it, they also slightly changed up the special teams groups in the practice as well. I didn't see what the changes were specifically. But
the new power play units were Toffoli, Bratt, Jack, and Nico as the power play 1, and power play 2 was Luke, Meier, Palat, Mercer, Holtz, and Dougie. Or sorry. No, hang on. Sorry. First power play unit was Toffoli, Bratt, Jack, Nico, and Luke. Second power play unit was Meier, Palat, Mercer, Holtz, and Dougie.
Yeah.
So that's probably what we'll roll with tomorrow.
Yeah.
I really like that second one. I like that Meier, Palat, Mercer, Holtz, and Dougie.
I feel like our power plays haven't been terrible because we have had some points scored on those power plays. It's the penalty kills that need to get better.
Yeah, the power play hasn't been like incredible, but you can definitely see the groundwork there for a really really good power play, and it hasn't looked terrible. So that's good. It hasn't looked bad. But yeah, you're right that the penalty kill has not been good. I mean, the defense hasn't really been good in general. So
yeah,
but this is kind of what we feared, right? Like this is kind of what we thought might happen. We were going to start the season with the defense taking a little bit of a step back and players, some of the new players taking some time to get integrated into the system and learn the system and yeah, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but 3 games in, I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet. I'm a little concerned, but I'm not panicking.
Yeah. And it hasn't been all bad. We have been seeing some great stuff from Jack as expected, some great stuff from Bratt as expected, you know. At times it has felt a little bit like the Bratt and Jack show.
Oh, definitely.
In terms of them being the only people to really make an impact on the team. But yeah, it's still, at least we got them.
Yeah, I mean, this team very well could be 0-3 or 0-1-2 or 0-2-1 if it weren't for Jack and Jesper Bratt. So,
yeah,
God bless them. So that's really all that we have for this week. Just a few closing remarks to reiterate on what we said earlier. Haula, Nosek. In terms of the NHL club, Haula, Nosek, and am I forgetting somebody, or is it just Haula and Nosek that are hurt?
I think it's just Haula and Nosek.
Haula with
Miller.
Oh, sorry. Yes, today. That happened today at practice. Miller, I guess, sustained some sort of lower body injury. They're never specific about it. But it doesn't sound promising. It sounds like he could miss some time, so I guess we'll find out hopefully in the next day or two what his status is. But yeah, so we have Haula, Nosek, and Miller that are currently dealing with some sort of upper or lower body injuries. And then in the AHL, the big one obviously is Nemec. Got hurt, so it does not sound like he will play Saturday in Utica's next game. So he's going to maybe miss a couple of games, and hopefully it's not too serious. They're only saying an upper body injury, but I heard that it was potentially a concussion. I thought I had read somewhere that it looked like it might be a concussion. I didn't see the play that he was hurt on. So either way, I really hope it's not a concussion, because those can really derail a player's development and career. So yeah. I always get nervous with head injuries.
Yeah, head injuries are quite bad. Having worked with people with head injuries, I know what that's like. I had to rehab them.
Yeah, I mean, look at poor Nolan Patrick. I mean, dude drafted second overall right behind Nico Hischier, and just concussions after concussions, and now he's dealing with like a migraine syndrome, and he basically his career is probably over, sadly. And he's only 20. He's Nico's age, so he's 24, and he's played less. He's played like 120 NHL games, maybe even less than that, and he's probably done. So, yeah, speedy recovery, hopefully, for Nemec and Haula and Nosek and Miller. And yeah.
Should we bring some slightly good news to this kind of slightly depressing episode?
Yes, please.
Just a quick mention that one of our drafted Lenny Himinaho.
Aminaho. I think it's Aminaho.
Haminaho?
I think it's Aminaho. I think the H is silent.
Yeah. Apologies. I'm so bad with my pronunciation.
Honestly, don't like take my word for gospel. I have heard Aminaho, but I have not checked the pronunciation guide, so I don't know for sure if that's actually how it's supposed to be pronounced. So
yeah. I do try and get pronunciations correct, but sometimes I forget in the moment. Yeah, but he has been seeming to be playing really well over in, is it
Liga,
Finland?
Yeah, he's in the Finnish league, Liga. I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been playing really well.
He's got looks like he's got 8 goals, 2 assists in 14 games. He started off with like 8 goals in the first 10 games, so he hasn't scored a goal in a few games now. But hey, for a second round pick, it's a great freaking start to his season in the Finnish league. So yeah,
he's a forward, right?
Yeah, he's a winger. Yep. We drafted him this year. He was our second round pick, drafted 58th overall, and he plays I think he's listed as a right winger. Yeah, he's a right winger. So
so good news. Right. If we still keep him and don't trade that pick anywhere, don't trade him anywhere, then we got even more talent coming through.
Yeah, we might have another one coming up through. Who knows? Maybe if Holtz doesn't pan out, then maybe Aminaho turns out to be better than expected. So
yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of a frustrating start to the season, but still confident we'll be okay. And I'm looking forward to the Islanders game on Friday. today, technically, at the time. It's now past midnight, so now it's now technically today.
Tomorrow for me. Yeah, so shall we wrap up with a guess that devil clue for this next week?
Yes, hit me with this week's.
All right. This devil was drafted 221st overall by the Washington Capitals in 2001 and played 3.5 seasons with the Devils before being traded. This defenseman was originally meant to be a depth player for us, but ended up playing nearly 300 games.
Oh, I think I know who this is.
He later won 2 Stanley Cups and a silver Olympic medal.
Yeah, I think I got this one. Okay.
I had to put a little bit more detail into some of that because I went, this one's I
think this is the latest drafted one you've done yet. I don't think you've had one that was drafted later than 200 and was it 222nd? 221st? What did you say?
Yeah, the 221st.
221st,
yeah.
Okay.
I also don't think I've had anyone earlier that year-wise than that. I haven't had anyone more recent than that. He's the first 2001. I had 2000.
Yeah, that's the first 2001. Yeah. You had yeah, because this last one was what, 1980? What was it? I don't remember.
1988 was the last one.
Yeah.
The only other one that I've had in the year 2000 was the one you got wrong, Paul Martin.
Paul Martin, yeah.
But yeah, 2001 for this one. So.
All right. Well, I'll hit you with my guess next week, and I'm pretty confident in this one. If you guys, by the way, if you guys think that you know the answer to this, feel free to tweet at us at DDU_pod on Twitter/X. We would love to hear your answer. We will tweet out. You're going to tweet out the actual.
I'll tweet out
the actual formal clue on Twitter for it, right? Yeah. So, you can either just add us and give us what you think, or you can reply to that tweet when it goes out. And if you would like to send us an email, we can be found at devilsdownunderpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear comments, questions, concerns, complaints. If you just want to bitch and moan about the week that the Devils have had, we will hear that as well. And we can be found on pretty much every other social media that the kids are hanging out on these days by searching for Devils Down Under. And I think that pretty much wraps it up, unless you have anything else.
No, that's it.
All right, guys, we appreciate you listening so much, and we will talk to you guys again next week.
See ya.